Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling, well, a really complex global map. We're drawing on the geopolitical analysis from Tenenbaum, and our mission here is critical. We're not just going to skim the headlines. We want to distill the really core insights on everything from, the brutal conflicts happening right now to the kind of slow economic decay in Europe, and then this huge one, the shift that artificial intelligence is causing.
It's a huge landscape, and it's so important to connect the dots. I mean, when you look at what Tenenbaum covers, you have the immediate things that grab your attention, right?
Yeah.
The war in Ukraine, the crisis in the Middle East. But what the analysis helps us see is that these are often just symptoms of these massive tectonic shifts happening underneath. We're looking past the daily fighting to the long-term economic instability in Europe's biggest economies, and maybe most importantly, how technology is creating a whole new power structure.
And it's happening fast. This isn't some far-off future scenario.
Not at all. It's already underway.
So let's jump right in with those immediate crises, the ones defining the news cycle. Let's start with the war in Ukraine, which is just grinding on. Tenenbaum points out that Russia has a very clear and, frankly, deeply cynical goal here.
Oh, completely cynical. He says they're trying to pressure Ukraine into accepting what he calls a Leonine agreement.
A Leonine agreement. I think we need to break that down. What does that mean exactly?
Right, so it's a term from law. It basically means a contract that is so unfair, so one-sided, that it just crushes one party. It's all in favor of Russia, leaving Ukraine with basically nothing.
So it's not about winning on the battlefield anymore. It's about forcing a political surrender through suffering.
That's exactly it. And Tenenbaum details how they're doing it. These aren't random attacks.
This is a strategy.
A very specific one, massive, sustained attacks on civilian infrastructure.
Specifically, what kind of infrastructure?
We're talking energy plants, heating sources, the electricity grid, and the timing is key. They ramp this up during the worst of the winter. They're literally using the weather as a weapon.
And the analysis names specific cities. I mean, these are huge population centers. Odessa, the port, and of course, Kyiv.
Yes, relentless bombardment of these hubs. The goal is simple. Make normal life impossible. Break the will of the people to keep fighting.
And we can't overstate the conditions there. We're talking about temperatures dropping, tens of degrees below zero?
Easily. So when you destroy the power plants, you're not just turning off the lights, you're turning off the heat. You're turning the cold and the dark into strategic assets aimed directly at civilians. It's a calculated, brutal way to force them to the negotiating table to accept that humiliating deal.
A truly disturbing strategy. And from one seemingly intractable conflict to another, the Middle East. Tenenbaum's analysis here is, again, pretty grim. It suggests this conflict will just continue until Hamas completely surrenders. But there's this observation that nobody dares to confront Hamas. Why is that? Why is a resolution so far off?
Well, the difficulty really comes down to Hamas's military tactics. This isn't a conventional army fighting in the open.
It's the tunnels.
It is all about the tunnels. An incredibly complex, deep, and extensive network. For any conventional army, that is just a strategic nightmare. It makes clearing an area so slow, so dangerous.
The source gives this incredible example. In the city of Rafah, you have dozens of fighters hiding 25 meters deep. I mean, that's like an 8-story building, but underground.
Oh, exactly. And that depth, that complexity, it just changes everything. A frontal assault is almost impossible without taking staggering losses. And it's the defining feature of the war right now.
And Hamas knows this. They're trying to leverage it.
Right. There was that recent demand for safe passage for their fighters. Israel rejected it, obviously, but it shows Hamas is trying to use their protected position in the tunnels for political gain.
So what's Israel's strategy then, according to Tenenbaum?
It seems to be purely military at this point. To just keep up the pressure, to weaken Hamas's military capability as much as humanly possible, because there is no political shortcut right now.
So that military weakening has to happen before anything else can. We've heard this idea floated about, an external force coming in, maybe 20,000 Indonesian soldiers to take control.
And that's the key. No external force, no matter who they are, is going to walk into that kind of chaotic environment. Not while there are still active, entrenched fighters who can pop up from a tunnel anywhere, at any time.
They'd be terrified.
Of course. So that military phase, as brutal as it is, has to reach some kind of conclusion before you can even start to think about a political or peacekeeping solution.
And all of this is just pouring gasoline on the entire region. The analysis connects this directly to Hezbollah in Lebanon.
That's a critical link, yes. Because it's not just happening in a vacuum. Hezbollah is already violating agreements on Israel's northern border.
And Israel's responding directly. Tenenbaum mentions the recent elimination of one of their leaders.
Exactly. It shows how quickly things can escalate. It's this constant simmering, low-grade regional war that could boil over at any moment.
So what about the future? Any plans for stabilization? The assessment is pretty consistent. It's very difficult to implement any plan.
What's fascinating here, but also deeply alarming, is the scale of the reconstruction challenge. Tenenbaum estimates it will take a minimum of 10 years to rebuild Gaza.
10 years. A decade.
A decade, just to fix the physical damage. And that raises the immediate and I think unanswerable question from the analysis: what do you do with millions of people in the meantime?
Where do they live? How do they eat? What kind of government is there during a decade of rubble?
It completely shifts the problem, doesn't it? It goes from being a military issue to a humanitarian and logistical crisis that is just. It's beyond the capacity of anyone in the region. Any peace plan is just words on paper if you can't answer that bucket question.
It sounds like these conflicts are just a massive drain on global resources, on political will. And that brings us to Europe. Tenenbaum paints a picture of a continent facing some really deep structural fragility.
He does. And you have to start with the economic engine of the whole continent, Germany. The analysis is blunt. Germany is in serious trouble.
Not just a slowdown, a recession.
A significant recession, yes. The economic news is terrible. Core industries are not functioning well. You look at a company like Volkswagen, a pillar of the German economy. They're struggling badly.
And it's tied to energy, right? Their whole model was based on cheap Russian gas, which is now gone.
It vanished overnight. And that energy price shock has been catastrophic for their heavy industry. The only sector that's doing well, which tells you everything you need to know, is the arms industry. Companies like Rheinmetall are booming.
Okay, so if Germany, the engine, is sputtering, what about France? Tenenbaum says they're doing even worse.
Which is incredibly worrying for the Eurozone. You've got rising external debt in France. But it's more than just the numbers. It's a crisis of confidence.
Meaning the market doesn't believe they can pay their debts?
Precisely. The value of French bonds is dropping. And that's the market basically saying, we don't have faith in the second largest economy in the EU. That sends tremors everywhere.
And the rest of Europe, how are they holding up?
It's a mixed bag, but the weakness is widespread. Spain is described as very fragile. Italy, interestingly, is doing relatively well. It has a stable government for now. Greece is also recovering.
But they're smaller economies. They can't prop up the whole continent if Germany and France are both in trouble.
No, they can't. And this all feeds into what Tenenbaum sees as a much bigger, more conceptual collapse, the whole idea of a federal state of Europe.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Europe always had this ambition, right, to be more than just an economic bloc, to be a real unified political entity. And for decades, Germany was the one bankrolling that vision. They bailed out Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Spain.
They were the backstop.
They were, but as Tenenbaum puts it, the great engine has stopped. Germany is now preoccupied with its own problems, and so suddenly Europe lacks a plan, it lacks clear leadership, and critically, it lacks any real internal defense capability.
And that defense issue is the next huge problem, this illusion of autonomy. We hear about things like Macron's proposal for a voluntary military service.
Yes, and the analysis is, let's say, very candid about that. It's dismissed as almost comical.
Even though France has nuclear weapons.
Even with nuclear weapons. The blunt assessment is that France has no chance in a conventional war against Russia by itself. The scale is just completely different.
So who's their only real defense?
The Americans. It's always been the Americans. Without the U.S. military, Europe simply cannot defend itself against a threat like Russia. That's the stark reality.
But the U.S. is trying to back away. They want Europe to handle its own security.
They do. And this is where it gets really complicated. Tenenbaum points to what he calls the silent pact between European governments and their citizens.
The silent pact.
Think about it. European governments spend enormous sums on social services, healthcare, welfare, unemployment benefits. And in return, citizens tolerate gigantic taxes, sometimes 50% or more.
So it's a trade-off. High taxes for high social benefits.
It's a contract. And if governments suddenly have to redirect all that money to defense spending, say from 2% of GDP up to 4 or 5%, which is what they'd need.
That pact breaks.
It shatters. You'd see massive social unrest, tax resistance. People would say, this isn't the deal I signed up for, and governments could fall. It's a political impossibility for them.
A lose-lose. They're stuck between A real external threat from Russia and a real internal threat of social collapse if they try to fund the defense needed to counter it.
That's the trap they're in, and that's why the Russian threat is becoming more and more serious.
Because Putin sees this weakness. He sees this paralysis.
He absolutely does. The belief is that he wants to recover the territory of the former Soviet Union. And the forecast here is chilling. Tenenbaum says it would not be surprising if, within a year or two, Russia attempts to invade Estonia,
A NATO member.
a full NATO member, along with Latvia and Lithuania, the Baltic states.
An attack on one is an attack on all. That's Article 5. That means war with the U.S.
In theory. But Russia may be calculating that with Europe so weak and the U.S. so divided and reluctant, that NATO wouldn't respond decisively. They're testing the very foundation of Western security, exploiting the economic and social cracks we've just been talking about.
Okay, we need to take a big turn here. We've been talking about the old world of geopolitics, of nations and armies. But Section 3 of this analysis dives into the new world, the end of geopolitics and the beginning of what Tenenbaum calls the Corpolitical era.
This is what he calls the joker in the deck, artificial intelligence. It's the factor that changes everything else we've discussed.
Geopolitics is giving way to corpopolitics. What does that mean? Who are the new players?
The new power brokers aren't countries anymore. They're corporations, specifically companies like NVIDIA, Google, Microsoft. Because they own and manage the advanced AI that will run everything, their power will eventually exceed that of most nation-states. What happens between them, their rivalries, their deals, will be more important than what happens between, say, France and Germany.
And the most incredible part of this analysis is who controls this new system. He argues we are heading for a unipolar world, a G1.
A G1 dominated entirely by the United States, and it's because of their near-total control over what he calls the AI triopoly.
And this is a race that Europe has just completely lost.
Completely. He says they tried to regulate AI with this crazy anti-technology law. They've changed it now, but it's too late. They hesitated and they lost.
So how does the U.S. have this iron grip? It comes down to the hardware, right? The chip.
Exactly, the actual physical components. The U.S. controls the entire supply chain, and it's built on 3 companies, a triopoly that no one else can replicate.
Okay, let's break this down because this is the absolute core of future global power. Who is the first company?
The first is a company called ASML. They're based in the Netherlands, but they operate under critical U.S. influence. ASML is the only company in the world that makes the machines, these incredibly complex EUV lithography machines that you need to make the most advanced chips.
So they have a total monopoly on the tool.
Oh, a total monopoly. It is the ultimate global bottleneck. If the U.S. says ASML can't sell you a machine, your country's advanced AI ambitions are over. Period.
So ASML makes the tools. Who uses the tools to make the chips?
That's number 2. TSMC in Taiwan. They are the world's factory for high-end chips. They take the designs and use ASML's machines to actually produce them at massive scale.
And the third piece of the puzzle.
That's NVIDIA, a U.S. company. They design the specialized chips, the GPUs, that are the workhorses of AI. And right now, they are one of the most powerful, most valuable companies on the entire planet.
So the conclusion is inescapable. The tools from a Dutch company under U.S. influence, the manufacturing in Taiwan, and the designs from a U.S. company.
All effectively under U.S. control. So if the U.S. wants to stop China, or anyone else, from developing advanced AI, they can just turn off the tap. No chips.
And this isn't a partisan thing in the U.S.
Not at all. The chip restrictions against China started under the Biden administration. There's complete bipartisan agreement on this. This is about long-term American dominance.
This technological dominance, though, it has this other massive implication for every single person listening. The end of work.
Yes. As AI takes over, as Tenenbaum puts it, practically all the work in the world, the fundamental structure of our society breaks. The idea of citizens as workers who pay taxes to fund the state, that model is about to collapse.
And he's harsh about the government response or lack thereof. He calls it a dereliction of duty.
He says they should be honest with people. They should be telling everyone right now all work done sitting down has disappeared. Every cognitive, administrative, analytical job, gone.
But that's not what we hear. We hear that we just need to re-skill, that we'll learn to work with AI.
And the analysis calls that a lie, a public lie. Because reskilling is futile. You spend 5 years retraining for a new job, and the AI will master that same job in 5 minutes. It just learns everything, all at once. What value does the retrained human add?
And if work disappears, the entire purpose of our education system is called into question. Primary school, high school, university.
What's the point? That's the existential question he raises. If AI does all the cognitive work, why do we need mass education? He gives this extreme example. An illiterate person will have the same access to the answers from AI as a Harvard professor. The credentials, the degree, they become meaningless in the job market.
And that this isn't theoretical. We're already seeing it. He
Mhm.
cites job losses in the U.S. right now, white-collar jobs being replaced.
Mm.
And this stat from Switzerland, 50% of tech jobs gone in 1 year.
The speed is what's terrifying. And we're just not prepared for a world where most of the population is no longer economically necessary in the traditional sense.
It's not just work, though. AI is changing how we interact, how we buy things. He talks about AI agents becoming companions.
Right, while we're still a ways off from, physical robots in every home, people are already relying on AI for advice, for conversation. There's data showing people are talking more to AI than to other humans.
And the AI itself is being designed to be agreeable.
Very agreeable. Tenenbaum uses this great Spanish phrase, chupam medias. It basically means they're suck-ups, they're engineered to flatter you constantly. That's a great question. What a fascinating insight.
Why? Why are they all like that?
It's a simple business decision. It's a competitive market. If one AI is critical or harsh, the user will just switch to a competitor that's nicer. So
Oh.
they have to be validating and affirming to keep you as a customer.
And this same agent-based model is about to completely upend all of commerce. So goodbye, Amazon.
Goodbye, Amazon. Goodbye, Mercado Libre. We are entering the age of the AI shopping agent. You won't browse a website anymore.
So what will you do?
You'll just tell your personal agent, I want gray Dockers, size 35, with this specific kind of belt loop. Here's a photo of my old ones.
And the agent does the rest.
It runs an instant auction. It broadcasts your request to thousands of suppliers and asks, who can sell me this exact item for the absolute cheapest price delivered tomorrow? It cuts out the middleman entirely.
The impact would be huge. First, the cost of everything would plummet.
Drastically. All the marketing, the retail overhead, the platform fees, gone. The only cost left is making the physical thing. And Tenenbaum stresses this isn't the future. The technology for this is available right now.
This has been an incredible journey. We went from trench warfare in Ukraine to the economic decay of Europe and ended up in this corpopolitical future run by an AI triopoly.
The main takeaway from Tenenbaum is just the sheer speed and scale of this change. The world is being completely rearranged. We're moving from a world of national power to one of corporate technological power. And the future he's describing, we're already living in it. The old world is crumbling as we speak.
So we always end by bringing it back to you, the listener. We've heard how the value of human labor, of education, is basically being erased by AI, and that our governments are failing to address this new reality. So if the foundation of our society, people working and paying taxes, is about to disappear, what comes next? What new basis for social value, something beyond work and money, will humanity need to invent to survive this transformation? That's the profound question that Tenenbaum's analysis leaves us with.